Elias was a rich man beyond what anyone could imagine. His fortune came from companies he had built with firm hands and a sharp mind. But the accident that left him in a wheelchair had stolen much more than his ability to walk. It had stolen his will to live. At 47 years old, he spent his days in the huge, empty mansion, looking out the window without seeing anything, without smiling. He didn't speak to anyone except when necessary. The employees were afraid of his cold stare and his cutting silence. Meals were left on the table without a word. The curtains remained closed, as if he wanted to keep the world outside. The mansion, once full of life and meetings, was now just a big house full of memories. "I need someone to accompany me," he said one afternoon to his secretary, with a hoarse and emotionless voice. "Someone who doesn't ask questions, who doesn't try to cheer me up, and who respects my absolute silence." That was how Clara arrived, 32 years old, widowed for 3 years, with brown eyes full of a serene strength that life had not been able to erase. She worked with dedication and kindness, reading to him, organizing his medicines, helping with the exercises recommended by the doctor. Elias barely looked at her. He answered with only nods of the head. Clara felt the weight of that heavy silence, but she never complained. She knew she needed the job to support her daughter and give her a better future. Clara carried a deep pain. Her husband had passed away, leaving many debts and a small daughter, Lila, 5 years old. The girl was her greatest treasure and her greatest concern. Every morning, Clara would leave Lila with a trusted neighbor before going to work. But one day, the neighbor became seriously ill and could not take care of the child. There was no choice. With her heart tight with fear and shame, Clara decided to bring the girl with her. She hid Lila in a small room next to Elias's office, arranging some toys and books to keep her entertained. "Stay quiet, my love. Mommy will be back soon. Promise you won't leave here," Clara whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead several times. Lila promised, with her big and innocent eyes. But 5-year-old children don't know how to stay still for very long. While Clara was helping Elias in the winter garden, the girl slipped out of the small room and walked down the hallway with her light footsteps, curious about that big and silent house. And that's how it happened. Clara had left Elias, and he was alone in the reading room when he heard a sweet and crystal-clear little voice. "Hi, Uncle. Why are you sitting in that little chair?" He turned his face abruptly, irritated. No one entered there without permission. His eyes met a little girl with messy brown curls, holding a worn-out teddy bear. "Get out of here," he growled, with a deep and cutting voice. Lila was not scared. She tilted her little head and smiled with purity. "Are you angry? My mommy says that when we are angry, it's because we are sad." "Is that it? Are you sad?" Elias felt a deep irritation rise in his chest. Who was that child? How dare she speak to him like that? Clara ran in at the same moment, pale with terror, her heart racing. "Mr. Elias, forgive me. I didn't have anyone to leave her with today. It was only today. I swear, I'll take her away right now." He didn't answer. He just made a dry gesture with his hand, ordering them to leave. But when the two were at the door, he heard Lila whisper to her mother, "The uncle in the little chair has good eyes. Mommy, he just needs to smile." That night, for the first time in years, Elias couldn't sleep properly. The innocent little voice echoed in his head, disturbing the silence he had cultivated so much. In the following days, Clara lived terrified by the possibility of being fired. Every morning she arrived with her heart tight, expecting Elias to dismiss her. But, to her surprise, he said nothing about the incident. On the contrary, when she arrived, he would ask in a dry voice, almost as if he didn't care, "Did the girl come today?" Clara, surprised and relieved, would answer yes. And so a silent ritual began that, little by little, changed the air of the big house. Lila still entered a bit hidden at first, but soon Elias allowed her to stay in the reading room. In the beginning, he got irritated. The girl talked non-stop. About butterflies she saw in the garden, about the sky that looked like a big blue blanket, about how the clouds looked like cotton candy. She asked why he didn't walk, why he didn't play with her, why he didn't laugh at her stories. Because I don't want to, he answered, sharply, turning his face to the other side. Lila didn't give up. Her innocence was like an insistent light trying to cross a dark wall. One day, she drew a bright yellow sun with big and crooked rays and handed it to him with her little hands, dirty with colored pencils. This is so you don't stay in the dark anymore, Uncle. Elias took the drawing with trembling hands. He stared at the paper for a long time. He turned his face to the side, pretending indifference. But Clara, who watched discreetly from the door, saw something she could hardly believe. The corner of his mouth curved slightly, a minimal smile, almost invisible. The first in many years, little by little, the ice began to crack. Elias allowed Lila to sit next to him while he reviewed documents. She tried to read children's stories with difficulty, stumbling over the longer words, and he, without realizing it, corrected her with growing patience. Clara watched everything with a heart full of gratitude and a new, warm and deep feeling that grew slowly inside her. There were difficult days. One afternoon, Elias had a strong pain crisis in his legs that left him in a bad mood and suffering. The pain was so intense that he lost control. He shouted at Clara, saying harsh words, and ordered Lila to leave the room immediately. The girl, scared, cried softly in the hallway while waiting for her mother. Clara comforted her daughter with tears in her own eyes, feeling her chest tight. That night, Elias stayed alone in the dark room, feeling a strange emptiness. For the first time in a long time, the silence of the house did not bring him peace. It brought guilt. The next day, he anxiously waited for the arrival of the two. When Lila appeared with her little eyes still a bit red, Elias extended his large hand and said, in a hoarse and low voice, "Sorry, little one. I shouldn't have yelled at you." Lila smiled, forgiving with the ease of children, and hugged his leg tightly, the only place she could reach. "I forgive you, Uncle Elias. Friends, forgive." Clara felt hot tears run down her face. For the first time, she saw Elias smile for real. A small, shy, but true smile. At that moment, something changed inside him. The man who lived trapped in silence began to feel, for the first time in years, that it was worth trying to smile again. Time passed and the union between the three grew stronger, like a family that life had brought together unexpectedly. Elias discovered that the presence of Lila and Clara gave a new meaning to his previously empty days. He began to speak more, to tell a little about his hard life, about the losses that had made him cold and distant from the world. Clara, in turn, opened her heart with confidence and told about the pain of raising her daughter alone, the constant fear of not being enough. The nights she cried hidden so Lila wouldn't see her weakness. There was a great challenge that tested all the strength they were building. Elias needed to undergo delicate spine surgery with real risks of complications. The doctors were honest. They didn't give much hope of great improvement. The night before the operation, he called Clara and Lila into the room. The air was heavy with tension. "I'm scared," confessed Elias, with a low and trembling voice. It was the first time he admitted a weakness in front of someone. Lila, with her childlike courage, climbed onto his lap with difficulty and rested her little head on his chest. "I will hold your hand when you wake up, Uncle, and Mommy too. We will never leave you alone. I promise." Clara held his other hand firmly, her eyes watery. There, in that silent and sacred moment, a pure love was born of fidelity and true companionship. It was not rushed passion, but a deep union of souls that met in the midst of pain and innocence. The surgery was more complicated than expected. Elias suffered a lot in the following weeks. The pain was intense and constant, and there were days when he wanted to give up everything, closing himself again in the old silence. In these difficult moments, Clara remained by his side with tireless patience, reading books in a low voice, changing compresses, encouraging him to keep fighting. Lila, even though so small, helped in her own way. She drew colorful figures, sang made-up songs with an out-of-tune voice, and told silly jokes that, even in suffering, made Elias smile through his teeth. The courage of the three was greater than the fear. Elias fought with all the strength he still had. As the days passed, he recovered part of his movements, and although he still needed the wheelchair, he began to feel a hope that had long been asleep. 1 year later, on a sunny afternoon in the mansion's garden, Elias called Clara and Lila. He was visibly nervous, his hands trembling slightly on his lap. He took a deep breath before speaking. "You transformed this empty house into a true home. Clara, you took care of me with a dedication and love that I did not deserve. Lila, you taught me that smiling is worth it and that life can still be beautiful. I want you to stay forever, not as a companion or as a visitor, but as my family." Clara covered her mouth with her hands, crying with pure happiness. Lila jumped with joy and clapped her hands. "Now I have a daddy in a little chair who smiles every day," exclaimed the girl, running to hug him. They hugged tightly in the garden, three hearts that found, in the midst of pain and suffering, the light of true happiness, union, and fidelity. Sometimes, the greatest cures do not come from medicines or fortunes. They come from an innocent little voice that insists on seeing good where there is only darkness. Elias teaches us that even when life takes a lot from us, we can still choose to smile. Clara shows us the strength of dedication and maternal love. Lila reminds us that the purity of a child can melt the most closed heart. Whatever your wheelchair, physical or invisible, never underestimate the power of a smile, of a faithful presence, and of a love that chooses to stay. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and share with those who need hope. Your subscription helps me create more stories full of emotion and life lessons. Thank you for reading.